wethu sinemeli Mr. Mngomezulu. Mayilitha vusela umbukele ekhaya.
Asiwavusele onke maswati ekhaya Mageba. Siyajabula kuthola lithuba lokuthi siwabingelele sekusikhathi sawagcina. Maswati onke siyawathanza futhi.
Awusase sajabula my leader. Kuba nawe namhla abantu solo bayashaya bayacela bathi Zulu sicela nisifake lapha kaSwazile News naka Democratic News manje sikhulume nemmeli sikhona emaswati lamahle naye ummeli sizokhuluma nizaba leti ngathi kuthi bathi nzathwana lapha yeqala ke Mr. Mngomezulu ninayo indzaba ya SADC lebekade niye khona my leader maye sijabulile kunibona lapha niyosirepresenta nebakithi mhlambe ngifuna siqale nganayo incwadi lebhalwe nguye Cleopas Dlamini ayibhalela Chairperson wa SADC iyawufuna my leader sihlatiye lencwadi ngakunye mhlambe nje ngingakubuthi ngakunye my leader ungathini ngale ncwadi ngoba ngiyakahle ukuthi uyibonile lebhalwe nguye DJ Cleo.
Cha siyibonile lencwadi Mageba sicabanga ukuthi lokuningi kwabo lokukhona lapha kule ncwadi akusilo liqiniso lokunye mhlambe singasho nje ukuthi asihambisani nakho ikakhulu ke ngoba siyacabanga ukuthi sekusikhathi lesithe solokukhulunywa indzaba yinye indzaba yokuthi even la kangwane akube ne dialogue onke ama parties la ngaboni ngasolinye ahlaliswe phansi kukhulunyiswana siyati ke ukuthi munye kuphela umuntu lobambe idialogue phakathi kwe-mass democratic movement nahulumende wetingundla ngekuunderstanda kwethu ingundla letende ukuthi kuze kube manje emaswati solaka yathola lithuba lesahlale phansi akhulumisane ngendzaba yepolitiki yelive la kangwane.
Awuyavakala my leader lapha kule ncwadi kunengcenye la ibhalile lapha Cleopas lokungu prime minister uthi la kule ncwadi i-dialogue abayibiti ngalokuthi babona ngathi lesimo is not conducive for ukuthi bantu bayodialogue ngeke bakhone ukuthi kukuletha lokho lekusehlitweni yabo kodwa nje lakavela namuhla uyasho lokuthi likhetho lona bayawuqhubeka balihlelele ungathini kuloko my leader indzabeni ukuthi bathi lesimo is not conducive for a dialogue kodwa is conducive for ukhetho.
No ngicabanga ukuthi kungemangala lihlata lokho Mageba mhlambe kumcoka ukuthi sisonke nje simaswati sikunderstand lokuthi i-dialogue nje kweqala yendeka nakwende njani i-dialogue iyayibangwe ukuthi uma ngabe sekukhona kungabonisani ngasolinye macondzana ne-direction yetembusave noma ipolitiki yalelo live ikakhulu nangabe mhlambe nema institutions labekiwe lafana neparlament lafana nanetinkantolo nana nawo awasakhona ukuthi angenelele anikete umkhombandlela ukuthi kumele ukuthi leyo inkinga lekhona even ilungiseke kanjani. So lala sesikhona khona ke siyathi ukuthi sekukuningi kakhulu lokwendekile kunebahlonishwa labagcine sebaboshwa ngishejele baboshelwa yona indzaba yetembusave noma i-direction lokumele silive la kangwane leyithathe macondzana ukuthi live litawuphatheka kanjani. So i-dialogue yekulungisa kona lokho kulamanye mave empeleni actually eSwatini kuthule kakhulu kulamanye mave iyayibitwe i-dialogue emasotsha alabo laba bangisanawo abe asembini kubulawana ngakho ke kulesimo lesikhona nje kangwane simo lesilunge kabi ukuthi i-dialogue ingabidwa simo lesikahle kakhulu sekuthi i-dialogue ingabidwa njengamanje. Uhulumende ke ngicabanga ukuthi uyakwati lokho maswathi lamaningi atawukhumbula ukuthi yena lo hulumende lo akhuluma ngeliphimbo la Minister of Foreign Affairs lo ngithuli idladla ngesikhathi ahlangane na Sergey Lavrov long Minister of Foreign Affairs wase Russia ube nesibinzi lesikhulu sekuthi atshele Lavrov ukuthi iRussia neUkraine ayihlale phansi ikhulumisane sikhuluma ngebantu ke labalwako labasembini lo mina lo ngikhuluma nawe nje kunemasotsha abo lafako kodwa ube nesibinzi ithuli idladla amelele yena uhulumeni wamswati ukuthi abatshele ukuthi abahambe bahlale phansi babe ne dialogue kanganani ke event likangwane la khona sicabanga ukuthi uma ucomparison nakulokwenda kulamanye amave lesimo sizinze nje kahle simo lesithulile impela so kufanele ke ukuthi kungaba ne dialogue mhlambe ke kuthinza nakulo lokucetha kusho nje ukuthi uhulumende wakangwane kuso sonke lesikhathi lathi yena asisi conducive ukuthi kungaba ne dialogue ukwatile ukuthi imicimbi yakhe yonke lephathelene nemasiko elive lokufaka phakathi umhlanga lokufaka phakathi incwala nebuganu nayo yonke lento leyo konke lokho kwendekile eminyakeni lophelile eminyakeni wa 2021 nakulomnyaka lesikiyo siyacabanga ukuthi babhizi benemalungiselelo akho kona lokho manje lokho kuchubeka kanjani nangabe simo eveni asikalungeli ukuthi kungaba ne dialogue sikhuluma yena lo hulumende lo kulomnyaka ulungiselela ukuthi kube nelikhetho lutawendeka kanjani lolikhetho lwakhe lo hulumende wetingudla uma ngabe simo lesikhona eveni asisi conducive for I dialogue lokunye ke lokufuna sikwati ngedialogue the type of dialogue lesimemetelako akusiyo kahle kahle le dialogue yokubelo uhamba uphuma ungena nemiti dialogue lethi there are leaders in the mass democratic movement ayatiwa lokumele ukuthi abitwe kuhlalwe phansi nawo nahulumende ayite nelithimba lakhe kuhlalwe phansi nawo endlini la khona bangakwati ukuthi ba secure the precinct la khona kwendeka lokho ukukhulumisana lokho ebukhoneni ba mediator lesicabanga ukuthi angaphuma ka SADC so sicabanga ukuthi ngamampunge noma nje into le khohlisa sive ukuthi uhulumende angathi simo asisi conducive wona lawo mangake mageba bawathethe ke bawahambisa bayowatshela iSADC njengoba utsinza nje kule ncwadi lokhuluma ngayo la khona SADC atshela ukuthi isimo lesikhona eveni asikakalungeli ukuthi ngaba ne dialogue sicabanga ukuthi the situation is very perfect and in fact if you look at the facts ukuthi kubhizi njengamanje kubulawa the political leaders la khona ku mass democratic movement it is becoming even more expedient or even more urgent ukuthi I dialogue sale iba khona eveni kude kuthi sitawukhona ukuthi impilo temaswati iqhubekele phambili siyinqobele mvi embusave lesibona ukuthi iyasicabanisa singemaswati
kuyavakala the people's lawyer maye siyakuthanda mmeli usehlitweni yethu simaswati ngifuna emlaleli siyacela lapha ekhaya uqhubeke ushere siyamvusela lapha ka Swaziland News siyavusela lapha ka Democratic News cela USA share USA share lapha kule ncwadi my leader kuna la khona abhale khona Cleopas Dlamini athi Maswati ake aniketa lithuba kwathiwa akavote ukuthi afuna I-multi party democracy noma afuna kuphathwa ubukhosi uthi ngalo 1968 bona bathi bonela 99% uthe ufuna inkosi yes 99% uthi ufuna inkosi 1% nguye lofuna lamaphathi so nanyalo bona basabambe lokho ungathini kuloko my leader kumbe sebasilike ebasiniketela amathuba
cha mageba ngicabanga ukuthi bantu labakhona eveni baya ngekukhula baya ngekwanza nanetemfundo nemahlakanipha kwabo kuya ngekushintsha uma ngabe uhulumende utawusebenzisa loyo mcabango loyo noma leyo logic le kanjalo kusho ukuthi ke event la South Africa kuze kube manje ngabe alikhululekanga lelo live ngoba sitawukhumbula singeminyaka wa 1948 kwaqala ipolitiki noma ngidawuthi iapartheid kodwa kwaya ngekuya kwabonakala ukuthi ayibalungeli bani balelo live nebelungu futhi labanye labaningi bagcina nabo sebasho ukuthi lenva isilungele ngizama ukuthini ke mageba ngizama ukuthi nga 1968 ipopulation yelive la kangwane yayincane kakhulu nangingaphosisi abantu beba labo 300,000 or even less illiteracy rate lebeyikhona ngaleso sikhathi nayo yayisemazingeni laphasi kakhulu lwati loluningi emaswati bekangenalo lwati lepolitiki ngaleso sikhathi uma ngabe lokho kwakwalungela ke futhi emaswati anga 1968 liqiniso lithi ke mhlambe kusene kwendeka ukuthi emaswati namhla ku 2023 akusawalungeli ukuthi they can have an absolute monarchy imonarchy lengihulumende ngato tonke tinhlakatawo imonarchy leshaya umthetho imonarchy lephinze icashe emajaji ibe ne-final say nawo lahlwe licala iphinze ibe imonarchy lebheke ukuthi uhulumende noma tembusave iphethwe kanjani. We think kulesikhathi lesiphila kiso that is absolutely unacceptable. And lolu shintsho lolu lesikhuluma ngalo silibonile emaveni lamaningi eAfrica lebe kungemave lebe anawo emakhosi. Kodwa lokubonakele ukuthi sale kuba nelishintsho. The most recent example lenganiketa yona kungaba iexample yaseLesotho la khona nakhona kube nelishintsho kwase kuyabonakala ukuthi ngeke kusalunga ukuthi Mushweshwe achubeke abe inkosi leabsolute. Asale kuba nelishintsho emaphathi embusave avumeleke kwagcineke sekukhonakala ukuthi even laseLesotho kube ne constitutional monarchy as opposed to an absolute monarchy. In fact, even the country that colonized Swaziland, England, monarchy yakona ayikho absolute. It's a constitutional monarchy. So what eMaswati are asking for, or should I say what the mass democratic movement is calling for, it is not out of the ordinary. And there are many, many examples all over the world where this has been tested, it is working. It has been the practice in the UK, or should I say in England, for many, many decades. So we are not asking for something lengeko tested, including in Morocco, by the way, where there are political parties, but also there is a monarchy. So what we are saying is that the time for an absolute monarchy in Swaziland, the greed, the parasitic nature of the monarchy, tentacles all over the place. Emaswati, they are unable to breathe. You control umhlaba, you control emakofas, you control konke. We think that's an untenable situation, and as the population I think the weaknesses of the current system are becoming even more exposed.
Yeah, kuyavakala leadership. Kuyavakala ngifuna singene kunayo my leader. Simbonile nani nivela lapha kule SADC summit. Mhlawumbe lo munye ngabuta ukuthi bodlakadla bayokwendana lapha. Vele bekuyini umsebenzi we-mass democratic movement lapha kule ya summit my leader na ungasichazela.
Lo mhlangano lobo bitiwe eMageba ubitwa ngokuthi it's an extraordinary summit of the SADC organ troika, or basically it's an organ SADC lebuke take paper evenikati lase SADC. So ke umhlangano lo njengalo yake esikhatsini esiningi vele kuvamile ukuthi kuba ngomhlangano lo yaye ubitelwe eTulu ngobe kusuke kuhlobo lomhlangano lokumele ukuthi lu responde noma heads of states kumele ukuthi a responde etintweni letsuke tendeka mhlambe kuma member states. So nalona ke ubitwe nje eTulu leaning lethu ngicabanga ukuthi sithole cishe kubo Sunday kuya kubo Monday ukuthi sekunemhlangano ke lo njengalo lebe kungumhlangano ke lobe ngakabitelwa livela kangwane kuphela emavele tindzaba lebe dzingidwa lapha tifaka ekhathi iMozambique iDRC kanjalo neSwaziland. Le ngicabanga ke ukuthi kanjalo neLesotho as well. Le ngicabanga ke ukuthi ngiyakholela impela ukuthi lesimo lesikhona even la kangwane kube lesinye setimo letibangele ukuthi bese lo mhlangano uyabitwa ngalokukhulu ukusheshsha. So ke sase sesiyabona ke ukuthi cha ngenxa ukuthi sifelwe silive kucetha kunekuthi kushonele onganga sihlalo we-multi stakeholders forum sabona kufanele ukuthi asiphuthumeni siyeni khona noma sesingeke sisakhona kubitana sonke phela ngoba awukabi khona umhlangano we-mass democratic movement ukulungiselela kube sese kuba kubitana nje ngetincingo ukuthi hayi asambeni, but ke knowing fully well ukuthi the mandate that we carry noma lokho lesikuhambisile i-mass democratic movement iyakwati akukahluki nalokho lebe solokukhulunywa nguye wangama wangcamane nelithimba lakhe kodwa ke yona iMSF beyimelelekile nemaphathi lamanye bekamelelekile njengoba nibonile kanjalo nema NGOs la khona even la kaNgwane nalamanye la supportako ngaphandle kwelive la kaNgwane. So ngingacishe nje umhlangano ngokuchaze kanjalo Maswati lamahle ngibonile mhlambe labanye bangaba nayo imibuto ukuthi hey uselebani kanjani kanjalo njalo leti inhlaka letikhona letimisiwe eMagebe Maswati latatiko njenge PPA i-Political Parties Assembly and the Multi-Stakeholder Forum batawukhona ke lebe bakhona babamelele ukuthi bababriefe ukuthi kuhambe kanjani next umhlangano ubideke kanjani. So ngingacishe ngishaye ngiyibeke lapho kodwa ke mhlambe ngingachaza ke ngete ukuthi umhlangano ube noma lihambo lwethu lube luhambo oluhle kakhulu. Yebo kona umhlangano uba ngumhlangano wema heads of states la khona ayangena afike athi ngithi amongst themselves bavane amandla bakhona kulungisana nekuqonzisana etintweni letsuke tikhungethela lawo mavela atsinzekako. Ngingakusho nje ukuthi sisesekhona laphiyana sikwatile ukuthi sibonela abahamba phambili uHulumende waseNamibia labanye nibabonile lokufaka phakathi Minister of Justice le sikhonile ukuthi sifake indzaba yethu neticelo tethu lesicela ukuthi uHulumende waseNamibia lo sesengusihlalo weTroika kwamanje akwadi ukuthi asibukele ukuthi sifika kanjani ku dialogue kude ku resolve ke inkinga telivela kaNgwane. Siphinde sakhona ke ukuthi sichumane ne civil society yakhona eNamibia lesikwatile ukuthi si-interact nayo ngoba phela iNamibia is a democratic country. I-civil society yakhona iyakwati nje petition uHulumende wayo in terms of inqumo lokumele sithathwe lesikholelwa ke ukuthi vele sebabe sebayakudlulisa konke lokho lebe sikuraise but asikagcini lapho ke siphindze sakwati ukuthi sithinzane nalamanye emave lebe amelelwe lapha le nawo lesikholelwa ukuthi atawukwati ukuthi asilekelele sithwale lenyanza ukuthi live la kaNgwane aligcine libe ne dialogue. Saphinze sendlula lapho sakwati ukusensitize the international community ikakhulu through the media yaseNamibia lesikwatile ukuthi sikwati kuyi-informa nekuyiniketa a perspective of the struggle lesikhona kaNgwane because the proper framing of the struggle in Swaziland is that it is a liberation struggle, a liberation from a dictatorship of the monarchy that insists to rule over eMaswati ngenkani using a constitution lesicabanga ukuthi it is discredited for the simple reason that even kwayona le monarch ayilandzeli le constitution anyway. So siyakholelwa ke ukuthi ke sisakhulumisana nayo imedia emhlaba ikwatile ukuthi kube na that kind of an understanding and we've received many inquiries both from Africa and abroad in terms of abantu labazama understand ukuthi bangalekelela kanjani bangabamba kuliphi side bona kude kusilive la kaNgwane ligcine likhululekile because lokufuna singakukhohlwa amaswati lamahle ukuthi konke lokho it is going to be a collective effort. Kude sive lesitawuthi khulula nje sona ngekwaso singakabanjiswa ngilabanye abantu. Mangingabekisa iSouth Africa nayo yabanjiswa. neZimbabwe kodwa konke inkinga lebe inato nayo ichubekile yabanjiswa. NeLesotho yabanjiswa nalamanye emave la khona bothola ukuthi kuba netinkinga. So it is within that spirit therefore that ke besizama ukuthi si build that international solidarity and also to communicate a singular message, a message that says we are calling for democratic reforms in Swaziland which will manifest themselves in a democratic constitution which will allow for multi-party democracy, which will allow for a situation where eMaswati atawukwati ukuthi atikhethele uHulumende wabo lofunwa ngibo nalo answerable to them. So that is the message that we were taking across, and also knowing phela ukuthi Mageba even la kaNgwane kude phela imedia letimele nasingakhuluma nje liqiniso, there is no independence of the media. Noma ngabe uyipolitician akwati nje yokhuluma emsakadweni Maswati lamaningi akwati ukukhuluma ipolitiki emsakadweni kaNgwane. So we count on these international partners to help us to drive the message and to communicate with the world, especially in the wake of kubulawa kwaThulani Maseko. Lesicabanga ukuthi the international community has taken a great deal of interest, and we also needed to communicate our perspective endzabeni yaThulani ukuthi sichaze ukuthi sine sicabanga ukuthi kwendekeni nane ukuthi sicabanga ukuthi singabanjiswa kanjani so that there can be justice for yena wangcamane nemndeni wakhe.
Kuyavakala the people's lawyer. Siyacela maswahla amahle lapha kaSwaziland News. Siyacela niqhubeke nishare ka Democratic News. Siyacela niqhubeke nishare maswahla amahle silandzele abanye batobona kusevele sikhona sinemeli Dlakatla. My leader uthi lona uyathi Dlakatla live nje lo likhiphe emlonyeni wakho liyawakha lo akamphefemulo ngiva ngathi democracy isonzele Dlakatla. My leader sifuna kungena la singangene kuna icase yebahlonishwa baqede namthandeni sifuna kuchecka my leader kukhona inlonga kusho ngekubuka kwakho siyaphi kusuka la lesikhona khona labanye bathi ithina ngathi siphela amandla Zulu ngathi kuthulile labanye bayasho lokuthi ayikona sekusonzele siyaphi Dlakatla from here.
Ngiyabonga kakhulu Mageba ngicabanga ukuthi nakukhona into lekufuna ukuthi eMaswati onke angayendi especially in the mass democratic movement kungaba ukuthi eMaswati aphele amandla lala seyifike khona amaswati lamahle nonke indawo kwati mina ngikhulele kaNgwane nami ngiyakwati lokho ayizange seyike ifike lala seyifike khona na ungahamba ubude eMswati manje umthole lapha eSigolden sakhe naye uyati ukuthi iyaqala kufika la seyifike khona eMaswati they have never been so determined, they have never demonstrated so much resolve and courage in the face of relentless state brutality and repression. But in spite of that, eMaswati, they have remained resolute, they've been committed to the call, they have not abandoned the message that says we need to see liberation in our lifetime. We need to live in a democratic Swaziland in our lifetime. So I would like to urge Onge Maswati, we cannot afford to give up from where we are right now because the regime has never experienced so much pressure as it has experienced the last 2 years. And that can only tell you one thing. Given the momentum that we have generated over the past 24 months, and given the support lesiyitholayo cishe kude live loyakilo la bafike bathi abayi-understand into lesiyilwelako aba-understand nekuthi sifunani kude umlonga understand ukuthi ngeke kulunge ukuthi Mswati angakhethela abantu abakhethele prime minister nalowo prime minister wesibongo sinye kuphela aphinze Mswati atikhethele yena emamlunga akhe eParliament lathandwa nguye. So you have a situation where the monarchy operates as a political party in every true sense of the word. Because the monarchy, they've got time to caucus amongst themselves. They appoint their own people to parliament. They appoint the government of the day, which is the executive of the day. They appoint the head of government business, which is the prime minister. Now, what kind of a situation like that in this day and age? You've got one singular family that dictates everything and to everybody. We think a situation like that is untenable. I mean, many countries around Africa, especially in SADC, they have abandoned those values a long time ago. So ingako sithena sikhuluma eNamibia nje itolo nema television stations akhona sachaza lokho ukuthi the problem with Swaziland is that they remain an island of dictatorship in a sea of democracies, and we think that in and of itself should be encouraging to eMaswati because it's a situation that is untenable. It is only a matter of time before this regime capitulates, and I'm sure ukuthi abatsanzi kukuva lokho but kuliqiniso ukuthi bataligoba liphondo because the opinion in the region, in SADC, the opinion internationally, the opinion even amongst the peers eMswati is that there has to be some reforms. You cannot have a situation where iSwaziland itawuqhubeka ibuseke ngale ndlela lebuseka ngayo ikakhulu when all the indicators suggest ukuthi the dynasty lekhona kaDlamini, they are even failing on many of the most basic of things. So Maswati, what are they benefiting from an absolute monarchy really? So sicabanga ukuthi eMaswati they shouldn't relent. insofar as the push for democratic reforms and a new constitutional order in Swaziland is concerned. So that's just on the one part. But on the second part, insofar as the way forward is concerned, ngingasho nje Mageba ukuthi mhlambe angayihambeli phambili MSF kanjalo ne-PPA kutaba ne-session la khona abaholi batawukhona sibabriefane about the outcomes of some of the things letendekile in the trip in Namibia lokunye kwako lengeke ngikwadi ukukhuluma ngako because of issues of confidentiality and secrecy and the like. So lengicabanga ukuthi bakhona labafanele PPA and MSF labatakwathi sibakhulume ngako in terms of e-way forward. But nje ngasho the obvious. So because what is expected in the main is that the Tingunda regime and Mswati in particular in this government, they must honor the commitment they made first and foremost to President Ramaphosa, which was a commitment that there is going to be a political dialogue in Swaziland. Now we expect that commitment to be honored. And again in November, the same commitment was echoed by the president of Namibia, who is the president of the SADC Troika currently, that there is going to be a dialogue in Swaziland, and that dialogue is imminent. Now, flowing from the meeting of yesterday in Namibia, there's been a reiteration again of that commitment. And in fact, they took it a step further to say Swaziland must urgently convene a political dialogue that will be geared towards settling the political impasse in that particular country. And so we expect nothing less than that, than for Tingunda government to come to the party, reach out to the leaders of the mass democratic movement, whom they know, by the way. In Cleopas' statement in his communique, one of the things that he says is that they don't know who to talk to, they cannot reach out to the other party. Again, it's a complete lie. They knew that they could reach out to Thulan Masego when he was alive, and they did not do that. In fact, in their own statement, they refer to Thulan Masego as a human rights activist. They do not even refer to him as the leader of the MSF, knowing very well that he has been engaging leaders of SADC on behalf of the mass democratic movement. So it is this Tingunda denialism that we have come to be accustomed to. This thing of pretending as if you don't know who to talk to, you don't know what the issues are. Literally, they are burying their heads in the sand and hoping that when they take it out, all of these issues would have been resolved. And we are saying none of these issues would be resolved. They have exiled our leaders, they have banned some of us, and some of them have been assassinated. But the problems of the political order in Swaziland, they still remain. So if you ask me about what we expect going forward, we expect that the government must honor the commitments that it has made to their peers, which is that there is going to be a political dialogue in Swaziland that is geared towards resolving the political issues that engulf the particular country. There is no doubt in my mind that unless that is done, then Swaziland will continue to be on the agenda of the next Troika, even after the next chairperson assumes the position, which we are told is going to be the president of Angola.
Kuyavakala my leader. Mhlawumbe sintangeni ke bahlonishwa ngafuna kuva my leader ukuthi ingaba yini advice yakho kuwo onke ama-political party leaders lesinawo eSwatini, kungasiwo nje nema-political party kuphela, onke ama-leader lesinawo kufaka inhlangano bosinathi bosinasi boswadkhawu boThuko. So what can your advice be, my leader, kubo?
Well, first of all, they must stick to principle. And in so saying, the leaders that you are referring to, I don't doubt any of them in terms of their resolve. I have no doubt they are in the right place, including the members of parliament who are incarcerated and one who is in exile. And some of the members of parliament that actually remain in parliament, many of them, they reach out to us even now. So all the leaders in the mass democratic movement, and some of whom you have just listed, we expect them to keep the fires burning. And by that, I mean, they must continue to sensitize and conscientize not only their members or their base, They must consolidate their base, but they must also reach out to the ordinary Swazi. They must communicate exactly what it is that they are calling for, and how is it that the constitutional order that they are advocating for ihluke ngani yona kuna the current order lesinayo lesiyibona ukuthi seyiyehluleka nangembala kusebentela eMaswati. Dinenge tindlela tekwenda lokho, it is through political education, but it is also through exercising their right to assembly and their right to organize and their right to protest. As far as I know, those rights are enshrined in the Constitution of Swaziland. Of course, we know ukuthi uMntwana Nkosi Simelane, without any court order and nothing, decided to issue an order that Madolopa, they must no longer grant permission to protest. We think that that thing needs to be ignored until such time that obviously there's a court order that dictates otherwise, which even if it was there anyway, I would expect them that they need to challenge that. So they must continue to organize this protest, organize themselves, conscientize each other, communicate their messages. And I think I cannot agree more with what some leaders in the mass democratic movement have said, that there's many frontiers of struggle, or no, should I say, the struggle has got many fronts. So anywhere where people organize or where people are congregated, there is another front for the struggle. There is another front for leaders in the mass democratic movement to communicate a message that says there has to be democratic reforms in Swaziland, which will manifest themselves in multi-party democracy, and which will ultimately result in eMaswati electing a government of their own choice and a government that is answerable to them. So noma ngabe ngikuphi labantu bahlangene khona, we are saying the leaders in the mass democratic movement must continue to conscientize eMaswati. They must continue to politically educate eMaswati. They must continue to reach out to the other side, and they must continue to win hearts and minds, because in any event, that's what politics is about. Politics is about winning hearts and minds. It's about getting the other one across the aisle and bringing them over to your point of view. So abaqhubeke bakwende lokhu, noma kusemngcwabeni, noma kusesontweni, noma ngabe ngikuphi, they must reach out to eMaswati. But not only that, they must strengthen their messaging internationally. In particular, they must reach out to international partners. I mean, with the passing of Thulani, there's many people that supported us in the civil society, many of whom we didn't even know that they existed, many of whom we didn't even know that they take interest in Swazi politics. But kushona kwakhe waNgcamane kuzivusele abantu labaningi ene kulethe kukhanya kubantu labaningi. Lesicabanga ukuthi kufika kwakhe should not be in vain. It should not be in vain, because we must realize in our lifetime all the ideals which he fought for, which is a democracy, constitutionalism, rule of law, supremacy of the constitution, peace and dialogue. And this is the message that we need to take across internationally, and we must strengthen our diplomatic engagement as well as our engagement with international partners who are prepared to support us as we rally towards getting some real democratic reforms in Swaziland. Njengoba sengiwachazile Makeba.
Awukodwa hlakahle unemandla mani. Awukodwa mmeli unemandla mani. Madoda ngako sengiyabona ukuthi bosihle edlamini babalekelana ngoba kwamchallenge asola kabuyi lapha kathi besibona ukuthi ngathi untanga elukululo elikhulu lapha. Sengiyabona ukuthi Alfios Itolo lapha ukuhlekelela uhlekeliswa kulamagama lamakhulu kuleligama nje lesekulibambile lesingisi lithi capitulate. Hayi madoda, capitulate. Ya ngifuna singene kunaye bahlonishwa my leader. Kuhamba njani lapha ngoba eTimbo libhalwa ngesingisi lapha Steve athini edlakahla. Kuthiwani lapha ngoba hey singisi.
Ngiyabonga kakhulu Mageba, lengingakusho licala lebahlonishwa selichubeka esikhathi lesithe kakhulu. Sigcineke la sifika khona sesikwatile ukuthi silalele bonke bufakazi bahulumeni. Niyakhumbula sesike sachaza uhulumende noma abashushisi babethu abofakazi labang 62, sabalalela bonke, saba cross examine bonke, sendlula lapho sakwati ukuthi sibiteke bofakazi labantu akwati sibafakazele noma bato supporta i-defense yabo bahlonishwa so sakwenda lokho sathi sesende lokho emva kokuba silethe ubufakazi lebe buprove ukuthi kahle kahle indzaba yema petitions liyagcina ibangela ukuthi kube nelidlame after longanga liphindla ndvunankulu babe Masuku Themba banned the delivery of petitions ngekwenta kwakhe lokho beka phambana nesijubo separlament so sabita ke fakazi lo wakwadi kusafika kuchaze lokho ukuthi cha indzaba yakhulunywa eParliament ema MPs avumelana ukuthi ngemhla ka 26 batawuhamba baye tinkundleni tabo bayo receive ema petitions emva kokuba kwabe sekutholakele ukuthi tinkundla letinganga 40 bese kuvele tiwa receive ema petitions bese kusele nje tinkundla letimbadlwana ukuthi receive ama petitions wasuyavela ke wanhlane wathi cha ngeke kusendeka lokho abese ke sekubangela ke laka lolukhulu ke Maswatini kwagcina sekubangeke ukuthi kube nema protests la bese abangema riots emva kokuba uhulumende wangenelela ngesandla lesi heavy handed uzama to diffuse lawo ma protests lawo so ke yingakho ke our clients are on the record to have said it is actually Themba Masuku lwabangela kube nelidlame kangwane because liqiniso lithi kube nje bahlonishwa bahamba njengoba nabona longa ngemhlonishwa Magawugawu Simelane wavinjwa enkundleni yakhe ayomukela yona ipetition kube nje Maswati afika amniketa umnguni ipetition amniketa bacede emabuze ehosi ya ipetition kanjalo nasemankayane bafike baniketa Mthandeni ipetition konke lokhu lesakubona lokwabangela sigcine sekufebani labangaka ngaba kwendeka ngeveni so ke i-angle nje lebe siyithethe bekungileyo ukuthi our clients are innocent, they are not terrorists, abakabulali umuntu and they didn't commit any seditious acts. So for that reason we have made the argument ukuthi kufuna bakhishwe so ke lokwendekileke ukuthi ngalesibili sibe sesiyahamba ke siyo submit nakule sikubita ngama closing arguments kuyeke kusubmitwe in writing lokusho ukuthi tethulo tethu tekugcina phambi kwelijudge sikusubmita in writing siphinde siku-present orally noma siku-argue orally so we did that on Tuesday lokubese ke sekuyakhomba ke ukuthi licala selifike ke ekugcineni seliphelile i-trial yabahlonishwa Maswati lamahle seyifike esiphethwele emaphethelweni nakuba ithathe isikhathi lesitsi lesekusele manje sekuthi ke ijudge Mamsidlamini sale ke aphinze asibita ke asinikete ke i-judgment yakhe losho ukuthi umsebenzi wethu njengebameli so uphelile ke kulesigaba samanje lesekusele ke manje sekuthi ijudge lisitshele ukuthi libathola abanelicala yini bahlonishwa benu Maswati lamahle noma sine sithi abanacala njengoba solo sisho
manje sensiwe ngezaba date noma tisegaveli mayilita nako nje lokuthi ya asingene kuleyo tindzaba date tiyakhulunyiswa ukuthi kahle nibitweni mayilita nitshelwe ngaba date esijubo
Makeba siyasithi ngelimi lebameli i-postponwe sinedie noma indefinitely ngesingisi lesilula noma ngesiswati alikabekwa lilanga la khona siyabuya ngalo enkantolo sikwadi ukuthi sitshelwe ukuthi isijubo senkantolo sithini naku kanjalo ke uyaye uhlale nje ugadze licingo lolivela ngakhona kubo registrar basenkantolo sebasibita kuthi na i-judgment seyiphumile wotani so ke kodwa ke esikhathini lesiningi tinveti kanjena tiyayithathe bo 30 days lesicabanga ukuthi ke kutawu kwendeka ngaleyo ndlela leyo ke so ke asadi siyawuva ngalo lijudge Mageba ngeke simkhulumele
awu siyabonga kakhulu Mr Mngomezulu kuyavakala siyabonga kakhulu Maswati lamahle lapha kaSwazile News awukodwa mzwezwezwe awukodwa mzwestureta demzwekhudostureruka awumadoda amhleli lo siyabonga kakhulu Swaziland News siyabonga kakhulu Swaziland Democratic News ukuthi nisinike lelithuba lekuthi sibe nayo umbeli siyawubuta indzaba letinkulu kakhulu angeke nginivulele ke baswatla amahle nishaye namhlanje yabona labanye bavele bayashaya lapha Zulu sicela ukukhuluma nemmeli ngathi ufuna ukukhuluma naye uwedwa wena Zulu enhloko lenkulu nje asengunikethe mbeli usho longafisa kusho lebakithi bese uyabhalelisa baswatini onkana.
Siyabonga Mageba mhlawumbe umuntu angagcizelela nje ukuthi especially kithi as lesila ku mass democratic movement ngiyacela impela maswatla amahle ngicela sibambisane kuloko ngicabanga ukuthi inye kuphela into lesiyifunako ukuthi live la kangwane libe ne democracy kude silive la kangwane lingabi ne democracy kuze kube nginamhla it's the monarchy and its system le vimbe emnyango yavimbela emaswati ukuthi angakwadi ukuthi athikhethele uhulumende wawo ngibonile umakabhala Cleopas uzama ukudescribe uhulumende wetinkundla njengahulumende lo democratic. Nothing could be further from the truth. In fact, there's nothing democratic about that regime. And kithi mhlambe lesafundza saye sayihlola ne-political science safundiswa futhi nguye uhulumende wakangwane nemali yakhe. Siyabona ukuthi le ndlela lelive leliphetheke ngayo akuhambisani nalokho lesafundiswa kona. Akusi democracy lendlela lapha kangwane. So Mswati ke na uhulumende wakhe akafuni ukuthi sibe ne democracy kuze kube manje simbona ngetendo takhe. So look, dasita ukuthi at all material times we must never lose sight of the goal lesifuna kuyishaya. And njengoba bese ngingachaza ngaphambelini, we have never been this close and we have never had a situation where we have amassed so many people who agree with our cause and who support our cause. So that tells you, Guti, if there's one thing that we all need right now, it's unity of purpose and unity of mind, so that we are all in a position to attain that which we seek, which is a democratic Swaziland in our lifetime. So ngiyacela ukuthi all of us in the mass democratic movement, we must remain united, we must speak in one voice. And what we are calling for, it is very easy to summarize. It's a straightforward message. It's a new constitution that will permit political parties, and that will result in the monarchy staying out of politics, and that will result in people voting for their own government, a government that is going to be answerable to them, a government that answers and can be recalled by the people through whatsoever constitutional mechanisms that would be provided for in the constitution. So that is what we are calling for. We want an end to impunity, a situation where the monarchy has got a blank check in terms of spending Timal Temaswati without any accountability, without being answerable to anybody. We think that is unacceptable. A situation where the media in Swaziland is not free to report freely, without being biased, and to call out wrong things that are being done by the powers that be, in particular the monarchy. So we are calling for a liberation of the political space so that emaswati atawati kulumai politiki freely, and where nobody will have to die for their political views. It is that Swaziland that we are dreaming for, we are calling for. And had we had that sort of Swaziland, where it is the people first, as opposed to the leaders first. La Maswati last fela June 2029, June 2021, 29 June, ngabe onge ayaphila. Because what they wanted to do was democracy in action, which was to petition their members of parliament about issues which were of concern to them. All of those Swazis would have been alive. Many of those that have also died in the mass democratic movement, even post June 29 of 2001, especially in the past year, many of those people would still be alive today. Now, so when you have got an undemocratic system and a system of despotism and authoritarian regime that is not responsive or answerable to people, ultimately, bantu bayabhubha. You have loss of life. And I must not any example because we have seen this happening in our lifetime. So I am therefore urging the mass democratic movement. There tends to be a lot of petty squabbles. Many of the times I ignore those things, either about tactics, either about who says what and who's more famous than that one and so on. None of those things are important. What is important is the goal. And by the way, you don't need to have even a position to champion the struggle for democratic reform in Swaziland. I don't have a position in any, I don't even have a political party. I can have one if I want, but I don't. But I'm a living example that you can champion the cause for democratic reform without any position. So everybody must be hands on deck towards sensitizing the ordinary Swazi to say, let us have a situation where we've got change of the political system that will permit people to run their own affairs in the manner that they deem fit through political parties or individuals of their choice. So that is what we are calling for. So I'm calling for unity, I'm calling for lubumbano, and I'm calling for focused on the goal, as opposed to Tinvoleti Petty that will not advance the cause for democratic reform in Swaziland. But lastly, we should be mindful of infiltration by the enemy, because I would imagine some of these comments don't even come from comrades anyway, but obviously they come from the enemy. And the enemy is that part of society that doesn't agree with the notion that Emaswati must govern themselves. So those are strategic enemies, not enemies in the true sense of the word, but strategic enemies in the sense that politically they don't work towards the goal that we are working for. So we need to be mindful of that. And we must stay the course and be focused on the outcome that we seek. And then that's the message that I just want to drive to all of you. But in particular, I want to call on the leaders that they must do precisely that they must lead, they must provide political leadership, they must be resolute, they must be firm, but also they must exert discipline where it is necessary, so that you don't have a situation where it's a free-for-all. But I also want to urge comrades that even above individuals, even above me or anybody that is involved in the struggle for democratic reforms in Swaziland, we should venerate values as opposed to people. It is values where there's democracy, the constitution is supreme, there is rule of law, nobody is above the law, as opposed to the situation where they are literally above the law. So those are the values even more than Bantu, because people are fickle, people can change. And so on. So we must venerate Emma values. We must understand that values will outlive individuals, and values and systems and institutions, it is what sustains a society as opposed to individuals. Because there's some expectation that they are always correct, even no matter wrong. It is absolute nonsense, and we shouldn't allow such a thing within the mass democratic movement. We must uphold the values that we seek. We must talk about the values that we seek all the time, and that is what we must be obsessed about above everything else. But I think we are very close, Zulu, having said what I've just said, we are very close to reaching our goal. Many things may not seem so, because media, but we are closer than many people think, actually.
Hayi kodwa mmeli ubhala lo munye la uthi yathi mmeli uyalaleleka, sicela ukuthi ungathi sewuyacetha nebakithi baye siyafunza my leader kunalomunye nje inogunene solo kuyangibhalela ukuthi Zulu bamba mfana kuna despotism bamba Zulu kuna venerate siyabonga kakhulu my leader uyathi sekuthi ngiphinze ngithi yini lenye longayingeta nengayibuthi bese sihamba
kude ngaba kusho nje ukuthi kusasa Zulu sibe sine memorial service yakhe comrade Thulani khona lapha ePitoli eUniversity of Pretoria ngidawucela ukuthi nani niwatise kakhulu eMaswati ekakhulanga khona ngala siyawameme eMaswati sithi siyaw celebrate impilo yalo lichawe lemzabalazo wakangwane may his soul rest in peace siyafisa ukuthi ngasinaye siyafisa futhi ngathi ngasingene naye kuSwaziland lesiyifunako kodwa ke akubange kusaba njalo siyakholelwa ke ukuthi uNkulunkulu utaqhubeka siqinise sifike la sifanele sifike khona so eMaswati akede sitombonga wangcamane for impilo nekudinikela kwakhe. The man has given the best years of his life to the liberation of eMaswati. He has suffered so much. He has been incarcerated. In fact, even now when he was murdered, bekasolo ane bail yanga 2009 angathi wakubona block ibail lenze kangaka but ke ukwatile ukuthi achubeke alimele iqiniso kwaze kwaba sekufeni. So we want to celebrate his life. Siyawamema ke eMaswati ke lokho ndlula lapho Mageba ngiyacabanga ukuthi kusene kwenda kube nalamanye ngithi ndzaba lesiyawubiya sitibike mhlambe letincike kuko kona lokho kwaseNamibia kodwa ke ngicabanga ukuthi ngeke ngikukhulume lokho kwamanje ngoba sisakusebenza uthini Alfios sinebantu labadzala so nathi sisakusebenza nebantu labadzala abakustrike kude sisithi ilungise indzaba leti kanjalo kodwa ke kutawubikwa in due course ngaleno kwaloko kude lengakungeta Mageba ngiyabonga kakhulu isikhathi sakho ngibonge naseMaswatini siyanitsanza amaswati lamahle.